The dangers of groupthink, or the perfect storm. A leader alone is not a threat. A group alone may have scary ideals, but unable to put those ideas in words that could be, or at least sound truthful, and also be acceptable to both the fanatics and those just wanting change without any real idea what that change might look like. Separate, they are only a threat, but together they feed off each other, with the fanatics engrossing the leader in ideas and the leader who just wants followers. He doesn't have empathy, all he has is the desire to be admired, listened to, be the one able to hurt, and not be the one to be hurt. A leader that has only the drive to succeed at all costs is usually from a humble background, and has been at the mercy of others who seem to have no mercy or consistency on how they treat others under their influence. This type of leader has only two thoughts. Being weak is the biggest threat, and to avoid that, they must be able to influence others. The others is in it doesn't matter what you say to gain that safety from being in a weak position and thus at the mercy of others. Fanatics, on the other hand, cares little about being accepted. There is safety in anonymity. They can say whatever comes to mind. The more pure the ideal, the more appeal to those in need of certainty in an uncertain world. The group is limited because they lack a leader willing to be the face of the fanaticism they hide in darkness, just waiting the spark of a leader who can communicate those ideas in a way many might cringe to hear but think at its core is true. Together, they feed on each other, the group indoctrinating the leader at first, while the leader absorbs everything like a sponge, learns the basics, and then regurgitates it out without any real belief in anything beyond making sure he is safe from being at the mercy of others. Far better to be the one capable of hurting others than to be the one hurt by others. Slowly, the tables turn, and the leader in his own mind begins to believe he's more than just a mouthpiece and makes the fanatics over into his idea. It usually has little resemblance to what the fanatics originally started believing. Fanatics not willing to fall in line with the leader will find it more difficult and eventually will be marginalized or will escape and become the focus of the resistance and the focus of the hardcore fanatics that are still able to maintain the trust of the leader, who will become drunk on the belief that they have been divinely inspired, chosen because he only has to think something and the group makes it happen. The fanatics are soaked in blood of those the leader sees as a threat to his worldview. Their group becomes hated and feared and at the mercy of the leader's whims. To maintain their power of influence, the leader's safety becomes paramount because the leader has purged all those he sees as having dangerous ideals or the ability to think for themselves. The leader, having removed anyone capable of independent thought, eventually will die and the fanatical core implodes without a leader, since their identity is now focused on one person and not the ideals they started with. If they are lucky, someone else will be able to stay under the radar of the leader and be able to fill the void. The new leader is far weaker and must rely on brute force to sustain himself, but eventually such an inbreeding, like incest, will eventually fail. No longer able to renew itself with new blood, everything gained by the first leader will crumble. It cannot last, and instead of being loved by followers, they become objects of fear. Their names and words no longer inspire, but become lessons to frighten and warn. Sadly, we ignore the dangers of the group, since to those teaching focus on the man who was never anything more than an empty, cracked vessel, no more than the voice of the group's echo chamber. The group doesn't disappear. It slumbers in the dark, mutating, while many fall into the mistaken belief that they won and the disagreement has been settled. They are the victors. They become the echo chamber of groupthink and are no longer prepared when once again the disagreement flares again and they are at the disadvantage because the entire time they were focused on the leader. They allowed one man to become the image to fear that in just a few generations the leader is still feared, but the ideals of the fanatics over time becomes more acceptable, only awaiting the spark of a leader to set the flames burning again, to tear everything down and force that generation's youth to soak the battlefield in their blood. Humanity is flawed, and this is a never ending cycle. Eventually, the lessons learned by one generation will be tossed to the side and must once again be rediscovered in a few decades because we are incapable of understanding. One person may have set the fire, but the wood was always there, only to be picked up and assembled into a campfire that is only dangerous if the person controlling the flame doesn't care about who might be hurt as long as he is warm. That is how I see the rise of such groups like Hitler and the Nazis, and why I fear so much Vladimir Putin, even though I don't distrust or fear Russia itself. But I also find the fanaticism in the ISIS group as a much bigger threat as the fanatics. Both separate are not a danger. If Putin was to get a fanatical core, he would be a very big danger. ISIS, on the other hand, only needs the voice in order to become that dangerous. Both, again, at the moment, appear to not be dangerous at all. Only time will tell. Thank you.